Remember to turn on all notifications so you don't miss a video. I really want to display just how bad Chainsaw Man is, so I will be doing a chapter by chapter critique on it. I wasn't kidding when I said it sucked. In the first 3 volumes, the manga isn't trash yet, it's mostly just below average, but it's definitely overrated. Chapter 1. Denji is a poor devil hunter working to pay off his late father's debt. In his past, he met Pochita, a chainsaw devil, and now they work together to kill devils for money. The Yakuza that he's working for eventually make a contract with the zombie devil, and they kill Denji. Pochita takes over his body and revives him because he wants to see the latter's dreams. Denji turns into the Chainsaw Man and kills all of his foes. Makima shows up and gives Denji a choice to die or become her pet. Since the protagonist has been poor and is easily satisfied, he becomes her pet. This chapter was alright. It wasn't as detailed as any of the big 3 starts, or any big battle manga for that matter, but it did the job. While I don't care for Denji yet, he gets a backstory and changes as a character after successfully conquering the problem of the chapter, kinda like in Bleach. Chapter 2. Because Makima is nice to Denji, and Denji is easy to please, he falls in love with her over tiny actions. I understand, but I'm not a fan of it. Makima starts acting manipulative, and Denji actually catches on. The chapter introduces an interesting conflict. Denji is supposed to kill the devil, but the devil saved the little girl. Denji plans to let her go, but the muscle devil becomes a threat when he attacks him, which removes the moral dilemma. Denji kills the devil and saves the girl. Makima tells Denji that Pochita is still alive, and Denji goes back to acting like her dog. After correctly calling her a psycho in this chapter, he goes back to infatuation when he asks what kind of people she likes. This chapter was okay. A problem was built up and Denji solved it, but I would have preferred if the moral dilemma stayed. I also don't like Denji licking Makima's boots. Chapter 3. Denji's infatuation increases as he now wants to bang Makima. He's upset that he has to work with Aki and wants to work with Makima. He even asks Aki if she has a boyfriend. This man is an idiot. Aki beats up Denji because he became a devil hunter to chase after Makima, which Denji confirms. Denji fights back and explains that Makima was the first to treat him like a human. Plus, his current lifestyle is better than being poor and hungry. At the end, Denji is still in love with the psycho. It doesn't make sense how he can call her a psycho and then revert to being her dog. This chapter was a little weaker than the other 2. It's basically an ideological battle between Denji and Aki, but I can't really get behind Denji's side, so that makes the whole thing weaker. Aki, however, makes perfect sense. Chapter 4. Aki and Denji are devil hunting, and Denji kills the devil. The 2 get into an argument over devils and Aki reveals that his family was killed by a devil. Later, Denji gets the shallow objective of touching boobs. Power is introduced at the end. This chapter was also subpar. The best part was the bit about Aki's past. Denji continues to be shallow and not serious. Chapter 5. Denji is paired with Power now. Power is bloodthirsty and kills a random devil and is later scolded by Maki for it. We learn that Power cares about her cat, Nyako, and she makes a deal with Denji, offering her breasts as a reward. This motivates Denji to kill the devil that captured the cat. This chapter was also below average. Hints at Makima's true nature are shown when Power is extremely scared of her, but we already know that she's unhinged from chapter 2. The major conflict of the arc is being built up, but not much has happened yet. Chapter 6. We learn Makima truly just sees the 2 devils as dogs. When they get to the house, Denji learns that Power lied to him and is knocked out. Power brings Denji to the Bat Devil as part of some deal, and the devil drinks his blood. Power's betrayal was very interesting, so this chapter was alright. Chapter 7. The deal was that the bat would return Nyako, but it eats the cat instead. We are shown a flashback of Power meeting and taking Nyako as a pet. At the end, the Bat Devil steals the cat. Power relates to Denji before being swallowed. The bat flies away, but Denji grabs onto it and becomes the Chainsaw Man. This chapter was also alright. A flashback develops Power and the conflict moves forward. Chapter 8. The 2 fight and the chapter ends with Denji killing it. This was alright. The power system and strategies are almost non-existent, so this fight was skippable. But the conflict that had been built up was finally resolved, so that was good. Chapter 9. We get a short flashback of Power and Nyako as she wakes up. Denji saving Power despite her betrayal was respectable, but his motivation was not. A new devil suddenly pops up and another fight starts, but Denji can't use his powers at the moment. This chapter was subpar. It felt like we were reaching a resolution, but then another problem suddenly showed up. This felt so random. Chapter 10. The fight continues and Denji tries to defend his shallow dream. He loses and Aki shows up to bail him out. Some new characters are shown and the chapter ends. This was also subpar. This fight was unimpressive and so was the ideological battle. Chapter 11. Aki and Denji clash about devils once again, but Aki will let him off the hook because no one died. but only if he agrees to obey his orders. Denji somewhat agrees and Power moves in with him and Aki. Aki lets Makima make this decision because he apparently likes her too. After some chaos, Power offers her breasts. This is also subpar. The conversation at the start was the only interesting part. Chapter 12. Denji does the deed and is disappointed. Makima manipulates Denji with her sex appeal before asking him to kill the gun devil. She promises to grant one of his requests if he does. This chapter was whack. Denji reaching his goal is uninteresting because I was never interested in the goal to begin with, and he is still wrapped around Makima's finger for some reason. Nothing interesting happened. Chapter 13. We see Aki's family getting massacred by the gun devil along with his kill count in a flashback when Makima explains its threat level. We are shown Aki hunting down clues to the gun devil before Aki's squad of 6 is given a mission. This was okay because we learned about the gun devil and Aki's past. Chapter 14. Aki is using a fragment to track the devil in the hotel. Arai doesn't trust the two devils, and the team bickers for some time. Himeno offers Denji a kiss if he kills the devil, and he is once again easily motivated. Arai gets jealous and starts fighting with him. When Himeno tells Aki not to die, a flashback of the two is shown. We learn that Aki is Himeno's 6th partner. At the end, an ugly devil walks out. This chapter was subpar. The only good part was the flashback. Everything else felt like a waste of time. Chapter 15. Power and Himeno kill the devil, but it's not the one that they want. Himeno explains her powers. The 6 learn that they are trapped on the 8th floor. Kobeni starts crying like a baby, and Denji goes to sleep. This chapter was also garbage. Imagine waiting a whole week for this. Chapter 16. We learn more about the current situation, and Kobeni continues to be weird. This chapter, she apparently almost drank from a toilet. We get another flashback between Aki and Himeno. This time, it's about cigarettes. The girlfriend of Himeno's old partner hits her, so Aki gets revenge by putting gum on her. This flashback also had more world building. The devil they killed comes back, but bigger. It requests Denji, and the chapter ends with Kobeni wanting to sacrifice him. This chapter was okay. The plot finally moved forward and the characters were fleshed out. Chapter 17. Aki and Himeno knock out Kobeni. I can't tell if she's supposed to be comedic relief or not. The characters try to figure out a strategy. Himeno wants Denji to die for them in the worst situation. Kobeni wakes up and acts like an idiot again. The chapter ends with the devil chasing the group. This sucked as well. We get hints about Aki's sword, but not much else. The characters either fool around or plan to no avail for the rest of the chapter. The devil is also not posing much of a threat except for trapping them. Unlike the muscle and bat devils, there is no kind of emotional plot line connecting to this devil. All the Aki and Himeno parts could be placed in any arc at any point, so the threat is uninteresting and the problem solving is either uninteresting or making little to no progress. Chapter 18. Kobeni and Arai try to kill Denji while Himeno prevents Aki from using his sword. Kobeni ends up stabbing Aki. He reveals his reason for protecting Denji, which pushes his character even further above the rest. Himeno starts panicking like an amateur when she's supposed to be a veteran, and Denji decides to fight the devil. Denji goes in and starts ripping the devil apart, but he's running out of blood, which gives the opponent the upper hand. This chapter was alright. Denji and Aki's interaction was pretty nice, but Himeno, Arai, and Kobeni acted very cowardly and unprofessional, especially the latter two. Chapter 19. Denji starts losing, but he drinks his opponent's blood to recover. A flashback shows that Himeno didn't want Aki to reach the gun devil and tries to get him to change his job. She believes that he'll die if he confronts it. Denji's fight takes 3 days, but he kills it at the end of this chapter. This was okay. The conflict ends and Himeno is fleshed out. Although minimal, this fight had strategy. Chapter 20. Denji is sent to the hospital and Aki and Himeno have a conversation. As they plan a party, we learn that Kobeni and Arai wanted to quit after this job. Aki wants Makima to be there, so they plan it when she's free. The rest of this chapter is a bunch of characters interacting at a party. This chapter was lame. There's no conflict, just an extended falling action to the arc. Chapter 21. The characters waste time hanging out and drinking. Himeno kisses Denji and vomits in his mouth. This ends with Denji and Himeno in the same bed. Garbage chapter. Chapter 22. The two sleep together, and Himeno plans to play wingman in the morning. Makima and her partner get shot by dudes on the train. The ending was interesting, but most of the chapter was trash. Chapter 23. More of the main characters are getting jumped by people with guns. A random starts talking to Denji and the others while they're eating. He eventually shoots Denji and the others. Power and Aki work together to fight back. The chapter ends with the katana devil emerging. This chapter was okay. Apart from the middle, something interesting was always going on. Chapter 24. Aki and the katana devil fight for most of this chapter. The former uses a strange curse to defeat his opponent. Another enemy shows up and wakes up the devil, who proceeds to take out Aki in one shot. This chapter was also pretty good. While the fight wasn't anything special, the art looked good, especially the last panel. Chapter 25. The dying Himeno sacrifices her body to distract the opponents and activate Denji's devil powers. Her body disappears and the chainsaw and katana devils begin their battle. Her monologue and last words to Aki were good, and the chapter had no dull moments, so I can confidently say that this was good. That's the end of volume 3. In 25 chapters, there are only 2 chapters that were good. Meanwhile, there were 6 worthless chapters, and the rest were either okay or subpar. Even widely trashed on manga, like Fairy Tail, are significantly better in their first 3 volumes. Same goes for manga that I'm no longer fond of, like Hero Academia or Black Clover. The fact that anyone can consider this a masterpiece is perplexing, and the story hasn't even reached its lowest points yet. This is a continuation of my Chainsaw Man critique. I'll be covering 1 volume per episode here on out. This part will cover volume 4. Chapter 26. This chapter was okay. Denji's fight was decent, but the Makima part makes little sense right now. She kills off all of her opponents off screen. Her abilities are not properly defined, and honestly I don't think they ever are. This is a problem. Chapter 27. This was subpar. Makima uses her mysterious powers to kill several opponents from a distance. Her abilities aren't explained, and this is all that happens in this chapter. If I don't know what she can do, then nearly everything she does can feel like an ass pull, which it does. Chapter 28. This was subpar. Arai's death is one of the many empty deaths. We barely knew anything about him and he's already dead. All I knew is that he was Denji's rival for Himeno. Kobeni suddenly becoming a competent fighter doesn't make any sense. Why was she so useless the last arc, but suddenly does a 180 here? Some random guy from the special division quits cause he doesn't want to die. I had to look him up to see if I was supposed to know him. His name is Madoka. Arai's death and Madoka's resignation feel like they're supposed to be emotional, but they both fall flat due to poor character development. Chapter 29. This was an okay resolution to the previous arc, though the lack of info on the enemy and their motives is disappointing. Aki mourns Himeno's death, and Denji wonders if he's lost his humanity. The teacher for the Devil Hunters is a nice setup for the next arc. Chapter 30. This chapter was okay. Questioning from the 2 reveals how strong Aki's desire for revenge is. Denji and Power train and get their asses kicked and then try to strategize. It was mildly entertaining, and I wouldn't be too upset having waited a whole week for this and having to wait another week for the next chapter if I was a fan. Chapter 31. The fight choreography and strategies in the Devil's fight were good, so this chapter is pretty good. Chapter 32. This chapter was okay. It was mostly dialogue, but the dialogue was kind of interesting. Through Aki's contract, we learned that he isn't afraid of death. Kishibe and Makima's conversation makes the latter out to be suspicious. The villains prepare zombies for the next battle. More setup. Chapter 33. This chapter was okay and a good build-up. Aki's conversation with the other 2 reveals more about his confidence and reinforces his determination. The other 2 show some personality. Makima's abilities continue to be a problem though. If they were at least consistent, it would be a fun mystery. But so far, she can revive herself, crush people from a distance with their names, and now she can make someone bleed out with a glance. All of her powers are ass pulls at this point. The villains are given a clear goal, which is to steal Denji's heart, so that's good. Chapter 34. This chapter was subpar. The intro was a lazy and clunky way of introducing new characters and giving us info on them. The snake owning Himeno's ghost devil and facing off against Aki was poetic, but that wasn't good enough to save the rest of the chapter, which was literally just character introductions. That's volume 4. This katana arc is okay at best so far, but not impressive or noteworthy. I'll be covering volume 5. Chapter 35. This was okay. The fight was underwhelming and didn't have the flair of other battles. The way Aki wins is kinda lame. A new flashback of Ghost's weakness is shown right before he kills it. This is an ass pull. Kobeni is somehow competent again. Once again, it makes no sense. Chapter 36. This chapter was subpar. It was mostly power fighting, and the choreography was weak here, and there was no strategy. The Katana Devil, having some kind of development, was pretty good. Denji's humanity is questioned once again. Chapter 37. This chapter was good. Chainsaw and Katana fight, and Denji wins by using a lesson from his teacher, which was a good strategy. Chapter 38. This chapter was mediocre and a plain resolution to the arc. Denji and Aki bonding over kicking the Katana Devil's balls as revenge was nice. Snake Girl commits suicide, the division gets closer to the Gun Devil, Denji has his door dream, and power gets stronger. None of this was really displayed in an engaging way. It was relevant to the plot, but it felt like boring exposition. Chapter 39. This sucked. Not much happened, and I'd be pissed off if I waited a whole week for this. Denji and Makima watch multiple movies, and their equal reactions hint that she might be a devil too. That's basically it. This chapter didn't really advance the plot, themes, characters, or setting. It wasn't even at least entertaining. Chapter 40. This chapter was also a waste of time. It sets up for one of the better arcs in the story, but this chapter was extremely weak individually. The whole thing is Denji meeting and hanging out with Reze. Their interactions and conversations aren't interesting. The whole chapter could have been shortened to about 5 pages and done the same job. Chapter 41. This was okay. The Angel Devil's character is developed and his morality and standards are shown. Aki not getting along with him will become important later. Denji and Reze hanging out is boring, like the last chapter, and makes up around half of this one, bringing down the first half. Chapter 42. This chapter was subpar. The question about the country and town mouse showed some insights into the characters, but the rest of the chapter felt like a waste of time. Denji and Reze continued to take up unnecessary screen time. This is once again about half of the chapter's pages. Chapter 43. This chapter sucked. Reze fights some dude, but the fight was quick and boring. Then she goes to a festival with Denji and asks him to run away with her. All this time the two are spending is incredibly boring and takes up too many pages. The festival until the end could have been done in 2 pages, but instead we are left with a chapter of removable events happening. I'm sure someone will argue that this time is necessary to make the upcoming plot twist stronger, but I'd counter with quality over quantity. One extremely emotional and impactful scene with Reze and Denji would have been much more effective than chapters of them fooling around. Look at Iruka from Naruto chapter 1 for example. But instead, we get 4 chapters straight of this boring nonsense. I also want to take a look at Denji's psyche and his relationship with Makima. I'm sure fans would argue that Denji's attraction to Makima is due to his terrible upbringing. But at the start of this chapter, when he's thinking about who to romance, his thoughts contradict this idea. He rejects Angel because he's an asshole and a guy. He rejects Kobeni because she tried to kill him. He rejects Power because she often tries to kill him, is selfish, narcissistic, and looks down on humans. At the end, he considers Reze and Makima. Notice how every single one of his decisions are logical except for Makima. In chapter 2, he calls her a psycho. Why is that not a negative here? Why does he not even bring it up? The most predictable excuse would be that he wants attention and is easily pleased. Then how come he's not looking for attention from Kobeni or Power? The latter literally lets him grope her, but he doesn't suck up to her. Himeno was also nice to him, but he never licked her boots. Denji says, quote, "Don't treat a man like a fucking dog," in chapter 2. Makima hasn't changed since then, so looking down on humans and being selfish and narcissistic is a problem, but treating a person like a dog isn't? That's my problem with Denji. He acts like a regular dude most of the time, but suddenly drops all logic when Makima's involved. That's volume 5. The Katana arc is fine, but the start of the bomb arc is lame. Screams from the haters. Got a nice ring to it. I guess every superhero needs his theme music. The Story Surgeon is back to continue the Chainsaw Man critique. I'll be covering volume 6. Chapter 44. This chapter was good. The Bomb Devil plot twist was dope and executed in a surprising way. Shark being a Chekhov's gun and saving Denji also worked well. Chapter 45. This chapter was good. It continued the conflict from the last chapter and introduced a great piece of information, which was Shark revealing that Bomb was Gun's partner. He also hinted that Makima was untrustworthy. Chapter 46. This chapter was average. This is one of the biggest examples of this manga being horrible at making good characters and effective deaths. The second division seemed like it had characters with so much potential. Nomo seemed like a chill guy with personality, and him having the Fox Demon was also cool. Kato and Tanabe both had a contract with the Mold Demon, which provided an interesting ability. The Lieutenant, who also had the Fox, had just as much personality as his boss. And what does this manga do with these characters? It kills all of them. The latter 3 were all introduced and executed in this chapter, while Nomo was introduced 1 chapter before. So much potential for good characters is thrown out the window, and instead of giving them quality screen time, maybe even giving them strong relationships, a character arc, or an iconic moment, they go as quickly as they arrived for shock factor. Isn't it cool how different Chainsaw Man is? Chapter 47. This is average. Not much actually happens to progress the battle. Bomb tries to negotiate and keeps getting turned down. Kobeni also goes back to being useless. That makes no sense and is inconsistent. Chapter 48. This chapter was mostly action and just okay. The bomb can seemingly do anything as long as it relates to bombs, which is unpredictable and makes the fight unsatisfying. She can explode things she touches, shoot sparks that explode, and can cut off body parts and make them explode. But she regenerates these parts like it's nothing, making her power very unbalanced. That makes the fight more disappointing. Aki pretending to be a corpse was smart though. This man is often carrying this story on his back. Chapter 49. This chapter was okay. It's mostly a setup for the next round by recharging the combatant's strength and introducing allies. Denji realizing that the katana and bomb use their powers for mobility is cool, although how katana relates to mobility doesn't make sense. Chapter 50. This chapter was good. The fight goes on. Angel has character development. As he has a flashback to something, his hand is grabbed by Aki, which sacrifices 2 months of his lifespan. Aki and Angel's relationship actually built to something, which is what the story should do more often. Because they didn't get along at the start, and both were given development, the scene was allowed to be written and have the maximum impact. Set up and pay off. Chapter 51. This was okay. The strategy on Denji's part was good. The rest was Denji and Reize talking again. While their dialogue wasn't as bad as previous chapters, it still wasn't that entertaining or revealing. We do learn that Reize had been faking her attraction all this time, but that and the fight aren't enough for me to say this chapter was good. Denji trying to befriend someone who betrayed him, like he did with Power, was a nice and consistent character trait. Chapter 52. This chapter was great. The symbolism from before about the mice carries through to the end of the arc. Angel asks a mouse if the city is a nice place, showing his character development. Reize, the main source of conflict, is dealt with in a satisfying way, but I still don't think the death was sad. There is even the tragic ending of Denji expecting Reize to come while we know she won't. The bomb arc was probably the best arc in this story. The threat was given enough build-up and even had a good plot twist. The antagonist was developed properly, and even some side characters as well. The fight wasn't too bad, and even had some strategy towards the end. The ending was also great. There's still the problem of how they develop other characters and kill them, but everything else was good compared to what I've seen up till now. Easily the least awkwardly written arc. The other arc with the katana was alright. Do I think the story is worthy of praise? Not really. While the bomb arc was great for Chainsaw Man, it would be an average arc in any other good battle manga. For example, Bleach's Lost Agent arc would be on or above this level, but that's one of Bleach's okay arcs due to the untapped potential. Naruto's Akatsuki Suppression Mission arc would also be on or above this level. This is an even better example due to how there's also a low amount of important characters, and how it's mostly focused on a fight with 1 or 2 opponents. Chainsaw Man is finally reaching ground level after digging a deep hole, but I don't think this will last for long. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and help me revolutionize the manga industry by buying my manga and spreading the word. All important links will be in the description.